Okay, in our next chapter, we're going to talk about decimals, which is a nice break from fractions. They're a little bit easier to work with. Okay, so for our first topic, we're going to talk about understanding place value. So we already should be familiar and comfortable with place value for whole numbers. Now we really need to focus on place value for decimals. So let's look at a couple of definitions. Our first definition is a decimal is a way to represent fractions or numbers that are not whole. So you're going to see at some point in this chapter that we're going to connect fractions and decimals. So decimals are just another way to represent part of a whole like fractions. So that tells me that every single fraction has some kind of decimal equivalent. So we'll learn how to do that. There are also these other decimals that don't have fraction equivalents. So we'll talk about those as well. But in general, decimals are just a way to represent fractions or numbers that are not whole. Okay? Now, decimals use a decimal point to separate the whole number part from the fractional part. Okay? We've all seen that, especially like if you go shopping, we've seen money. There's a decimal point. It represents the dollars from the cents. The dollars being the whole number, the cents being some part of a whole. Okay? And then finally, we have this idea of decimal place. A decimal place refers to the number of digits after the decimal point. Okay? So just a quick example, if I were to write 4.25, 4 is the whole number part, 0.25 is the fractional part. We use a decimal to separate the two. And then notice I have two digits after the decimal point, so I have two decimal places here. Okay? Now let's revisit place value. So hopefully you remember from the first chapter when we were dealing with whole numbers that the location of a digit in a number refers to that number's place value. And that's really important for us, especially when we're rounding. Place value is important, but we also need to understand place value when it comes to like saying numbers and writing numbers as fractional equivalents. So place value is important here. Okay? Now, I do want to point out we have our decimal point. The decimal point separates the whole number part from the fractional part, okay? When we're dealing with place value of the whole numbers, we start directly beside the decimal point and then we would move to the left. So just as a quick reminder, place value, we start in the ones place and moving to the left, we go tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s. We could go further. We could say millions, 10 millions, 100 millions. We could go into the billions period and say billions, 10 billions, 100 billions, and so forth. Now, after the decimal point, we start directly beside the decimal point, but we move to the right. Okay, so the closer to the decimal point, the bigger, the further away from the decimal point, smaller. Okay. Now we start with the tenths place, and that THS is important. That THS indicates some fractional part. So we start with the tenths this time, which is a little bit different. So we start with the tenths, and then you'll see the pattern continue. So it's tenths, hundredths, thousandths, 10,000ths, 100,000ths. We could keep going. We could say millionths, 10 millionths, 100 millionths. We could go billions if we wanted to. Okay. Just make sure you're really clear on that THS because that THS indicates some fraction portion. Okay. Now let's pay close attention to the place value and how that really truly does relate to fractions. So if I'm in the tenths place, that coincides with 1/10. If I'm in the hundredths place, that coincides with the hundredths place. If I'm in the thousandths place, that coincides with 1/1,000. If I'm in the 10,000ths place, that coincides with 1/10,000. And if I'm in the 100,000ths place, that coincides with 1/100,000. And there's something really important about the fraction and the place value, and it makes it easy to understand what place value you're in. Okay, so notice this. So if I'm in the tenths place, I'm one decimal place in, and 10 has 1 0. If I'm in the hundredths place, I'm two decimal places in, and 100 has two zeros. If I'm three decimal places in, I'm in the thousandths place, and 1,000 has three zeros. The 10,000ths place is four decimal places in, and 10,000 has four zeros. And then the 100,000ths place is five decimal places in, and 100,000 has five zeros. So the number of zeros in the power of 10 matches the number of decimal places we have for that place value, which can be really helpful when remembering the place value that you're in. So count the number of decimal places and then just think 1 over that power of 10 with that many zeros. Okay? So let's look at example one here. So example one says just determine the place value of the 6 in each of the numbers that we have listed here. So for part A, we have 45.106, and we will learn how to say these more formally. For now, just 45.106 is okay. So let's count decimal places. We're 1, 2, 3 decimal places in. So we have to ask ourselves, what power of 10 has 3 zeros? Well, that would be 1,000, right? So this is the thousandths place. Remember, 1,000 has 3 zeros. We're 3 decimal places in. Decimal places match zeros in the power of 10. This is the thousandths place. For the next one, for part B, we have 0.9176. The 6 is 1, 2, 3, 4 decimal places in. So what power of 10 has 4 zeros? Well, 10,000. So this is the 10,000ths place. And make sure you put that THS. If you don't have the THS, you got the wrong place value, okay? And then finally, for part C, we have to be really, really careful. We have 9,862.95. Well, the 6 is actually in a whole number place value. So remember, before the decimal place, we don't start with tens, we start with ones. So we go ones and then tens, hundreds, thousands, and so forth. So this is in the tens place. So just be really mindful of whether you're before or after the decimal point, okay?